What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the Casual Fan with me, Wyatt D. The first two games of Wildcard Weekend are in the books. A lot of fun, little unexpected. We had the Houston Texans, Cleveland Browns in the early game, and then the vaunted Ice Bowl that we were waiting all week for. Would they play? Would they not play? Tyreek Hill returns to Kansas City to face his former team as part of the Dolphins. So, how did it go? We'll start with the early game. Houston Texans, as you know, rolled over the Cleveland Browns in what I would say is a very unexpected outcome in this game. I'm not surprised that the Texans won. However, I am surprised at the way they won and just dominated this game. 45-14. The obvious story coming out of this game is CJ Stroud. Everybody's been talking about him all year. He's picked up a lot of steam as the year's gone through, and rightfully so. Yesterday, 16-21, 274, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. All 3 touchdowns were in the first half. And then, as you know, the Texans had 2 pick-sixes in a row, which basically put the game out of reach for the Browns. Texans coasted throughout the third and fourth quarter. Davis Mills ends up finishing up the game. CJ Stroud, you got your rookie quarterback with your rookie head coach, and your quarterback is wearing a baseball cap in the end of the game. I'd say that's we can feel good about that game there, Texan fans. Now, CJ Stroud, when you watch him, I know a lot of the media is crowning him as the best rookie quarterback ever. I can't, I'm not a big one to do the whole ever and best all time and all those things. There's so many variables when you look at this, but what I can say is that CJ Stroud looks like he belongs on that field, and you say that confidently, right? That's no slouch to CJ Stroud. He's been unbelievable. The poise that he has, watching him read defenses, go through his reads, and the velocity that ball comes out of his hand is really fantastic. The footwork. I'm not a quarterback guru by any stretch, but you could just tell, his body placement, his footwork. He's ready to distribute the ball as soon as he sees something that he likes. And my goodness, it's been really, really fun to watch. Stood in the pocket a few times yesterday, took big hits, but still delivered strikes. So you got to love that. And obviously just throughout the season, he only played 15 games. He did miss a few games with that concussion, but 4,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 64% completion rate, 5 interceptions, rookie quarterback on a team that was really bad last year. So again, kudos to D'Amico, CJ. Good for the organization. I will say I did think this was their first signature win of the season. You kind of look back, they didn't really have any big wins throughout the year. They didn't beat any teams that are in the playoffs this year. So they played two teams that were in the playoffs, and the Ravens and the Browns. CJ didn't play in that Browns game, so it's hard to look at that, and say with confidence. Now, Houston looks like they're here to stay in the AFC South. Look out. Everybody was ready to crown the Jags the division for the next 10 years. And with Anthony Richardson for the Colts and CJ Stroud for the Texans, maybe Will Levis for the Titans, this division looks like it's going to really become very, very competitive. For Cleveland, I think ultimately this is a disappointing end to what was a pretty dang exciting season for these guys, right? They finished 11-5 with 5 different starting quarterbacks. That's essentially unheard of, right? They pulled Joe Flacco off the street. I don't know, what was it, 6-7 weeks ago, and he finishes the season with them, and he's got the offense cooking by the end of the year. Everybody's talking about how did nobody see this? The Jets, how did the Jets not bring Joe Flacco back? He looks like his Raven Super Bowl self again. And, man, the Texan defense had him on the run all day. What was once Joe Flacco standing and slinging turned into Joe Flacco running for his life. And I was waiting for the, Aaron Rodgers on his back helmet shot at some point throughout the game. We never ended up getting it, but Joe Flacco definitely wasn't comfortable, definitely was running for his life. Really tough game for him. And then the defense, the first half, you got to give props to Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator for the Texans. He was dialing it up. There were guys open. CJ was slinging it. Everything just seemed to be clicking in that first half, and Cleveland just didn't look. They looked a little out of sorts as far as the defense is concerned. Now they've been a very good defense throughout the year. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, they've really shut teams down, and man, the Texans just kind of did whatever they wanted. So obviously the second half is hard because Flacco has the 2 pick sixes. You're putting your defense in really bad, a really bad spot being down so much. So that's it was shocking, quite frankly, to see what the Texans did to the Browns. Now, looking at that Watson trade, this was funny to have this kind of microcosm in the game of these two teams that traded with each other. Browns, Texans. Everybody knows the story. The Texans received 3 first-round draft picks for Deshaun Watson, which has obviously turned into C.J. Stroud over time, plus additional picks. And I got to think that the Texans are feeling pretty good about that deal that they made. C.J. Stroud's looking like a superstar. Deshaun Watson struggled to stay on the field. And then obviously that contract that the Browns gave him. So listen, I always root for the underdog teams. Cleveland's one of those teams, but I'm a little worried about where they are going to be following this season. And then you look at Houston; they're moving on. If the Buffalo Bills win tomorrow night against the Steelers, which barring any sort of catastrophe, they do look like a heavily favored team over the Steelers. Then Houston will be facing Baltimore in the second round. I'm really, really excited to see them take on another strong team that they have seen this year. So there is some familiarity there. Stroud's hot. D'Amico's got those guys playing. So will Lamar Jackson be able to come out after basically 2 weeks off? He didn't play in the final game of the season. 2 weeks off. Will he be able to come out and get a nice win against a really, really hot team? It's going to be fun to watch. Now, moving on to the second game of the day was the Ice Bowl. We didn't know what was going to happen with this game. The Bills game got postponed. There was a lot of people asking for the same for the Kansas City game with the frigid temperatures. I'm thinking at one point they were saying minus 30 degrees with the wind chill, and just leave it to football fans. That stadium was packed. I got to give props to the Chiefs fans for toughing out the weather. And then of course you got your signature shirtless guys like what? I'm all for the toughness. But shirtless, negative 30 degrees. Man, that's a notch above where I think I could ever go. So, overall 26-7 Chiefs. It's a really strong game by the Chiefs, I thought. The offense basically moved the ball at will throughout the field. They did stall on a couple drives, ended up with field goals, but I thought overall the Chiefs offense looked healthy and in tune and really moving the ball pretty consistently. Isaiah Pacheco is a problem. Rashee Rice is coming on strong for the Chiefs, right? This is something that the Chiefs has been a story all year long. The drops, the wide receivers have point blank caused the Chiefs some games this year. So to see Rashee Rice stepping up, that's got to be encouraging if you're a Chiefs fan. Kelsey sort of still struggling a little bit with his drops, but Kelsey is Kelsey. And listen, if I got to take a tight end into crunch time, I'm still going Travis Kelsey all day. Mahomes had a ton of time in the pocket all day. And the defense, Spagnuolo and his defense still looks really, really strong. Really just harassed Tua all day long, which we'll get to. But if you're a Dolphins fan, you're looking at this game, and one of the stories all year was the Dolphins have not beat a team with a winning record in 370 days or whatever it was at the time. They end up beating the Cowboys, but now looking at this, we're back. They lose to the Ravens, a winning team. They lose to the Bills to finish out the season. They lose the division to the Buffalo Bills with a 3-game lead. They had a 3-game lead with 5 weeks left. They end up somehow losing the division to the Bills, which I am low-key happy about, of course. And so they end up having to travel to Kansas City, cold weather, on the road against a Super Bowl defending champion team, Patrick Mahomes, and they looked every bit as outmatched as I guess all the data all year would tell us, right? Tua, 20 of 39, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Quite frankly, I never thought he looked settled into the game. He never really established a good rhythm. There were several throws throughout the game that were high, wide, low. I also thought at many points throughout that game that his arm strength was questionable. You know, you're throwing these 10 to 15 yard outs, and the ball is just not getting there with pace. Yes, I know it's windy. I know the weather had something to do with it, but you're seeing Mahomes able to fight through the conditions. I would have liked to see Tua have a little bit better of a day. The ground game for the Miami Dolphins, 18 carries for 76 yards. I thought this was going to be a big deal coming into this game to take some of the pressure off Tua. You had Mostert in, you had Achan in, and they just weren't able to get the ground game going, and then you start falling behind. Falling behind, and you know what eventually happens with that. The defense, it's really hard to judge the Miami defense. They were missing. I never like to go down the injury excuse road. It's hard to, give that pass to any team because all the teams in the NFL are dealing with injuries throughout the year in the playoffs. Guys are banged up. But you look at the Dolphins and they're missing Xavier Howard. They're missing Bradley Chubb. They're missing Jalen Phillips. They're missing Van Ginkel. At some point, when you got Melvin Ingram playing 80% of your snaps on defense, you have a problem. So that was a rough showing for the Dolphins. I'm sure Dolphins fans are really disappointed right now, after the way you started the season, which really sort of, almost climaxed when you had the 70-point showing against the Broncos. They were the golden team of the NFL, and they're all so fast and everything's cranking on all cylinders. And I think slowly over the season, I think defenses started to figure out Tua. They started to figure out McDaniel's schemes. And I think McDaniel's a fantastic head coach and a innovative offensive mind. However, I do think that he's a young head coach, right? It's only his second season, and I think he'll make adjustments going into next year. And I think Miami's going to be a team to deal with for the years to come under Mike McDaniel. But you look at the Dolphins right now, and this was their year. They're one of the teams. I believe they're second from the bottom as far as cap space next year. They're $40+ million over the salary cap. You have a lot of high paid players: Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Taron Armstead, and you're over the cap, and you still need to look at contracts for Jalen Waddle, Christian Watkins, and your quarterback, which brings the question forward: is Tua the quarterback of the future for the Miami Dolphins? I think it's hard to say. I think he was in the MVP conversation all year. He was near the top of the league in yardage. That offense was efficient throughout the year, and Tua was slinging it. But I think it's a fair question when you watch some of the games where he's not able to make an impact that you'd like to see, when you see that out of a Josh Allen or a Pat Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, these other high paid guys, Burrow, Herbert. Is Tua on that same level? There's been a lot of debate of if he's a system guy, and does the credit deserve to go to Tyreek Hill? Does it deserve to go to Mike McDaniel? I think it's hard to say, and it's fair to question. He's now going to be on his 5th year of his rookie deal, at $20 million. They were in the time where they were going to get those. This was their Super Bowl. They went all in, going for Bradley Chubbs. I think was the one that said, "Okay, we're all in on this project onto his rookie deal." Is he a $250 million plus guy? I don't know. And if I'm Dolphin fans, I'd love to know what you think. I always love to know what the hometown fans think. I'm in Buffalo, so I'm a Bills fan. I read about them every day. I listen to them, every day. We know every nook and cranny of our team. So what are you guys thinking as far as Dolphin fans? Do we want Tua to get re-signed to a max deal? Is he worth $50 million a season? Is he worth Joe Burrow money? Is he worth Justin Herbert money? Jalen Hurts? It's really hard to say. So I think overall, some positive signs for the Dolphins this year, but ultimately a disappointing end to the season. And we move on, looking forward to today's games. We got Cowboys, and we got Cowboys, Packers, and then of course we got the Matt Stafford Bowl, Lions and Rams. Another great job by McVay. We'll be looking at those games tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. Everybody have a great day. Take care. We'll see you next time.